ready for this?
Dun 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 dun. Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to Side 1, Side B. I'm Steve.
I'm Dave,
and I'm ready for this. I'm Sean.
And today, we're taking a look at a couple of singles from the southern rock band MUDCRUTCH. Have you guys heard of the band MUDCRUTCH?
I've heard you mention them, but I won't say where.
And I have not heard of MUDCRUTCH.
MUDCRUTCH.
MUDCRUTCH, that's what you call it when you're wearing like the big rubber work boots and you're out in the mud and you hit a skeleton.
What? You said MUDCRUTCH. It's what it sounded like you said.
MUDCRUTCH.
MUDCRUTCH?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
MUDCRUTCH.
What the fuck's a MUDCRUTCH?
It's when you hit a skeleton when you're working in the muck.
Oh, okay.
The band MUDCRUTCH was the band that Tom Petty was in before.
Don't look at me like that, Stalin. Fuck you.
I have my Russian political leader nesting dolls supervising him right now.
Well, I have the
Gorbachev's a judgy motherfucker.
Well, I have U.S. presidents, a random smattering of U.S. presidents.
MUDCRUTCH is the band that Tom Petty was in before he was famous. They released a single. Well, today we're going to be listening to a single that they released independently while they were still in Gainesville, Florida, and then a single that they put out when they were seeking out a major label deal. Before that didn't work, and they ended up breaking up and forming the Heartbreakers, and Tom and Mike Campbell and Ben Montench went over to the Heartbreakers, and then the rest is history.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
Proto-Heartbreakers.
Yeah. What's interesting about them is in 2007, 2008, after they released the Tom Petty documentary, which is I watched recently, is very good. They got together all the guys from MUDCRUTCH who didn't end up joining the Heartbreakers, and they all talked about like Tom Petty, and that kind of stirred up Tom Petty's like nostalgia. So he reformed the band in 2008. And next season, we'll be listening to this album, the self-titled MUDCRUTCH album, which I think will be a fun listen. But before we get to this, we're going to listen to the stuff that they put out in the 70s.
Does that actually have Tom Petty on it?
Yeah, he actually plays bass in this band.
Huh.
Whoa. Weird.
Wild.
Yeah.
Did they re-record their old material, or
They
did
didn't.
they write new stuff?
And part of the reason why we're doing this is I think it'll be kind of interesting for us to listen to this, and then when we follow up when the season starts, we can compare like the songwriting. But so at first, I don't want to go like too terribly into it since this is a EP bonus episode, but the long and short of it was they got popular while they're in Gainesville. They were making decent money like playing at a bar with a scummy bar owner, but they kind of wanted to see if they could get a little further, so Tom and Mike traveled across the country to LA, and
The future was wide open.
Yeah, they got a record deal.
Great wide open.
MUDCRUTCH tried to record one of the singles we'll be listening to today. It didn't get anywhere, so the label said, look, we're going to sign just Tom. So Tom got the record deal. They kept Mike on retainer because Tom said he needed Mike. And then they went through some like session musicians, which included Jim Gordon from the Bread episode.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes, Commissioner Gordon. And none of that was working out until the Heartbreakers got together. So, yeah. So today we'll be listening to two singles with two songs each, and then I think for fun we're gonna listen to the MUDCRUTCH version of "Don't Do Me Like That." So, yeah.
Which they did do him like that. Because he did do him like that. What a dick.
Yeah.
He left him in the great wide open.
And they were free falling.
He just left him free falling.
But at least they didn't back down and the band reformed.
Eventually. After he's like, yeah, I've had my hits.
Yeah.
Fuck, why not?
We see you've been living like a refugee.
Yeah.
All right, so this first
One last dance with Mary Jane. Let's just do some Mary Jane and see what happens. Anyway,
There was a
sorry.
change of heart.
This first version of Mudcrutch was formed in 1970 in Florida, and Tom Petty and Tom Ledden were both kind of the leaders of the band.
Leader of the pack.
And then they also had a guy named Jim Lenahan. They had Randall Marsh on drums, and then Mike Campbell, who was also in the Heartbreakers. Eventually, they got Ben Montench, the keyboard player. He was like related to a judge, so it was kind of weird that he went into music. But he was going to like some fancy university, and then he would come back and play with Mudcrutch like when he was in town, basically. And then he obviously went and joined the Heartbreakers. But the first single we'll be looking at today was a locally distributed single that they recorded in 1971, and it features two songs called "Up in Mississippi" and "Cause Is Understood."
Awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll start out with that.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this.
Up in Mississippi.
I didn't even know this existed, so it's actually quite nice to hear some early Tom Petty. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I didn't really know it existed until I went into a Tom Petty phase after my dad passed away.
Yeah.
And I heard about this, and it was one of those I didn't know about Mudcrutch, but after I put their album on, I was like, oh man, I would have showed this to my dad if he was still around. But
Oh yeah, this is awesome. Okay.
yeah. All right, here we go.
I'm excited.
And we're back.
All right, we're back from the first single. Instead of flipping this time, we're just going to listen to each single individually because we're just listening off the internet because these are really like rare singles. And
Yeah.
It ain't nobody got that kind of fucking money.
yeah, I didn't even see one on Discogs, and I'd imagine it'd probably be like $300 for one of these if you wanted one.
That'd be my rough estimate too, just out of thin air, what I would
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
But yeah, what'd you guys think of these two songs?
They were pretty good. I think the Heartbreakers were the right way to go. But I also think maybe it was because with the Heartbreakers he'd had a little more time to develop the songs. But I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, you can definitely tell it was early Petty. Like he was still finding his voice, you know.
Yeah, I could recognize him, but he definitely didn't have the same exact voice that he ended up using for the Heartbreakers. Although I would also say that Tom had a few like distinct voices, depending on the song he was singing.
Like the first song definitely sounded like Tom Petty, early Tom Petty.
The second one sounded like it was being sung by a different member of the band at first, at least to me.
Yeah.
Tom Ledden did vocals too, so you might have been hearing him at certain points. But
Okay. Yeah.
Tom was the lead vocalist on both songs.
Okay.
But yeah, I think what's really interesting, I don't think this is the case on the second single we're about to listen to, but on this single and then the album we're going to listen to during the season, Tom Petty's like the bass player, and I think he's a pretty good bass player. He had some pretty interesting bass lines on both of these songs.
Yeah.
I thought so too, yeah.
One thing that I thought was interesting about it is like how busy the bass was while he was singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not easy.
Yeah.
Additionally, I thought the guitar playing had some really good accents, and I think that might have been Tom Ledden's guitar playing, like the accent points and a lot of the leads. Mike Campbell was also in the band too, and as we know, he's an amazing guitar player, so maybe a lot of that was him as well. But Tom was let go from the band between, like, they had a gig where the bar owner pissed him off, and like Tom Ledden like stormed backstage, and like what happened was the bar owner kind of like subtly insulted them, so he went to like kind of defend their honor, and as a result the bar owner like fired them from their like house gig, and that pissed Tom Petty off, so he got rid of Tom Ledden. And I think when we go to the next side we'll probably notice his loss quite a bit. But
So you want to do each song?
yeah, so First one, Up in Mississippi.
This is the one I thought sounded like, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh, wow, this does sound like early Tom Petty, like the first album Tom Petty, like American Girl Tom Petty.
I think the vocals kind of did. I think it was more boogie woogie than like the hard rock, hard edged type of stuff of the Heartbreakers. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, the southern rock sound didn't really transfer over to the Heartbreakers at all.
I wasn't digging the backing vocals, though. I thought the backing vocals kind of sounded off key in this song. They were kind of weird and didn't fit the song very well.
I did not pick up on that.
I don't know. They kind of, every time the backing vocals kicked in, I was like, ooh. But I thought the guitar work and stuff was good. I thought it was a good song, but I guess I can tell why they weren't bigger. Or like why they were like, okay, Tom Petty, you're good.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that like the drums, bass, and piano were all really busy, but then there's like kind of a straightforward acoustic guitar part, and then more of a straightforward slide guitar part. It was good, but it, like slide guitar, you end up having to sustain a lot, so it's not going to sound as busy. So just like, I thought it was interesting, just like how busy three of the instruments were, and the guitar was more like grounding.
Yeah, I thought the guitar was leaving a lot of like really tasteful accents at certain points.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't think it's as good as what the Heartbreakers became, but I thought it was interesting, and it was cool to see it kind of in like its embryonic stage.
Yeah. All right, the next one, Causes Understood. This one we were all very surprised by the abrupt ending, which I think is how it actually ends. We just listened to it on YouTube, so maybe it's possible we listened to a weird version, but...
Yeah, it felt like they didn't know how to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the song itself, it kind of went through a few different phases. It sounded like a kind of a southern rock song at the beginning, but it had like a psychedelic
That's when
breakdown.
I was like, there's all of a sudden this psychedelic breakdown. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. I'm like, this does not match the tone of this song at all. And then I don't know, this song was really rough.
Yeah, the guitar solo was really wah heavy, which I think worked for the song, but it is definitely a very specific tool to use. Yeah, like I can tell this was the B-side. It felt less fully formed than Up in Mississippi.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. The vocals didn't sound like Tom Petty to me, at least not at first. As it kept going, I started to hear it a little more, but
I don't know. They never really sounded Tom Petty to me. Maybe it's just because he was it felt buried in the mix, like his vocals.
One thing I noticed about Tom is he's not afraid to like try different vocal styles.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, both songs I think are really interesting. I'm pretty sure they used this EP to shop themselves to labels when they drove out to Los Angeles. What ended up happening is they started their trip across the country, and it was, I think at some point their van broke down in Oklahoma, and
As it does.
Invited to a studio that was run by eventually the label that the Heartbreakers are on, Denny Corden's label, and he just he helped them and he gave them like a big old pile of cash to get to California.
How the hell does that happen? Like, you just break down and all of a sudden this fucking guy gives you money.
It was incredibly good luck. Like I recommend listening to Mike Campbell's book. That's kind of what I'm sourcing for this is he talked a lot about their early years, but also the Heartbreakers documentary that I saw on Tubi. I think that one's called Running Down a Dream.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
really good.
I've been meaning to watch that because it's been out for a while.
Since like 2007.
Yeah.
It's really good. I definitely recommend it. So this next one, the single is Depot Street, and it's got a B-side of Wild Eyes. This one's gonna have kind of a genre shift. This one's more like, well, you guys will hear it, but Tom Ledden was fired from the band, as I mentioned before, and Tom Petty doesn't play bass on these. It ended up going to, I think, a session guy named Charlie Souza. But otherwise, it's got Tom Petty, Randall Marsh, and Mike Campbell, and Denny Cordell, the guy that they came across in Oklahoma producing it.
Is it only 2 more songs? I thought you said there was 3.
And then we're going to listen to the MUDCRUTCH version of Don't Do Me Like That.
Okay. Are we just going to do all 3 of them then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right, I think that's all I got to say. So let's throw this on.
All right.
All right.
All right, and we are back. We just listened to the single that they released after they got signed to Shelter Records. That was two songs, Depot Street and Wild Eyes. What'd you guys think?
That was an abrupt shift. They hadn't. I still feel like they hadn't quite found their voice quite yet, but they were getting much closer to it. I did think these songs were a little more interesting than the other single, the first single. But yeah, it was like almost there, but not quite.
I liked them a lot better.
Yeah.
I thought they were a little bit more formed. Both the songs were just sounded better. I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on why I liked them better than the other two.
Well, this one was actually produced. The first one was independently done, like at a random like Florida studio. This one had an actual like label backing, so I think that might be part of it. They were doing like full on like, you know, recording sessions, and they recorded like mini songs for this, and then I think they just kind of put this one out to test the waters. It unfortunately didn't do very well, which is obviously why they fired the rest of the band, and then he went and formed a different band. But yeah, it was definitely a big shift. Was the first one was more of like a southern rock vibe. This one, like the first one, was kind of a reggae tinged song. The second one at least started out as more of like a, like you described it, as like a Stones type song at first, and then it got kind of deep fat fried for the lead guitar.
Yeah. Brought the South back into it by the end, but yeah.
The South will rise again.
Yeah.
No, cut
not
that
that.
out. Cut that out.
You're canceled, Sean.
Shit. Yeah. And these two songs were different from each other in a way, like they were still dialing in what their voice was, but it was much closer to the Heartbreakers, and I feel like from working on this and from these songs feeling like more complete and more fleshed out than the first one, this one is almost there, and like I can see myself listening to these ones for fun more than the first single, just like on my own.
Like, I didn't think Up in Mississippi was bad.
No.
The second one I thought was kind of bad.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was really great. But Depot Street was good.
Yeah. Depot Street kind of reminded me, like you said, there's a reggae bit to it, which, yeah, I heard that, but it also sounded a little bit like if you combine Television and Bruce Springsteen. So mix that in with reggae, and I think you got this. And Television was like had been doing their thing for like a year at this point, but they hadn't released anything. So I think it was just something in the water, was doing that kind of little to no distorted guitar type of stuff. But yeah.
One thing I'll mention, I thought that these songs didn't make sense to release under the MUDCRUTCH name. I think MUDCRUTCH is a perfect like southern rock name. So maybe I wonder if part of the reason they weren't successful was because of that name.
That could have been it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the greatest name in the world. It's like
at one point when they were workshopping names for the Heartbreakers, at one point they wanted to call themselves Tom Petty and the Nitros.
Oh no.
And Mike Campbell in his book said that name's almost as good as MUDCRUTCH, like sarcastically.
Oh man. Yeah, MUDCRUTCH does sound too like, it's like, what the fuck is MUDCRUTCH? Like, what the fuck is that? It's like,
it sounds very Florida to me.
Yeah.
It does fit a Florida band.
It's like, oh, we got a crutch in the mud. We're a MUDCRUTCH.
We're stuck in the goop, in the mire. In the muck.
In the muck. The muck crutch.
These two songs were fine, but I could see why they didn't make it like until they formed the Heartbreakers and they did like Breakdown, American Girl. Like those two songs just are like amazing, and these two songs are they're fine, but
they're fine, but they're not American Girl.
Yeah. I just don't see people like getting excited about it when they hear it on the radio or anything like that.
Because I mean, okay, you can still have a southern rock band and be successful. I mean, like Leonard Skinner proved that.
Yeah.
I think if Leonard Skinner had been named Mudcrutch and released Sweet Home Alabama, I think people still would have loved that song.
Yeah.
So I don't really buy that it was the name that made them unsuccessful. It was the songs were not great.
Yeah. Depot Street, that was shocking when it came on. It's like, that was an abrupt shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the loss of their guitar player and then the switch to a session bass player, I thought was kind of jarring. It changed the entire vibe from the first band. And I've listened to the album that they put out in 2008 too. Like, so I've kind of heard the dynamic that those guys had. And yeah, it changed things. It made it like I see more potential with the previous lineup. You know what I'm saying? Even if maybe those two songs weren't as good as these two songs, I think the old lineup had more potential if they had like a producer behind them.
Yeah, maybe.
In other words, firing Tom Ledden was probably a mistake.
They needed to cook longer is what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. I think when we do the album in the next season, I think you guys are going to really like it. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I think sometimes, like, there's kind of a pressure for, especially in this era, for bands to, okay, just get some songs out and get out there, because you have to. You have to make enough money to keep doing music and not get a job at the grocery store or tinting bar, that type of thing. But oftentimes it just needs a little more time to come together than when bands are pushed out there. So it's good that in the end this was able to lead to the Heartbreakers, but I think for Mudcrutch to have worked, it needed to spend a little more time cooking before it started like touring and going all over the country and all that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I thought Depot Street was good. It sounded more like the Heartbreakers. I like the guitar and the bass in the recording. I thought it sounded really good.
Yeah. Television meets Springsteen meets Toots in the Motel. Motels, yeah.
Wild Eyes. I thought, actually, you were saying Stones. I thought Bob Dylan. I thought like later Bob Dylan when he went electric. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, I kind of had that, I don't know, 60s rock vibe, but then yeah, the twangy like guitar lead came in halfway through and reminded you why they're named Mudcrutch.
Yeah, the solo I thought in Wild Eyes kind of is what made the song. Like at the beginning, it's like, yeah, it just sounds like another Stonesy thing, but the solo and this, like the tone actually, like the tone of the guitar and then like the way the solo was played fit the song so much better and also brought it up. Like it wasn't like a what the fuck solo in Causes Understood. So yeah, this, like, yeah, like Wild Eyes, I can tell why it was the B-side. Depot Street was the better song, but it was interesting. You could see like more of what would become the Heartbreakers coming together with that.
Yeah. I thought I like I said, I thought both the songs were decent, but again, they weren't like, this is gonna sell this band decent, you know. At that time, like they needed that American Girl song, you know, or something like that.
Make it last all night.
Make it last all night.
Yeah, and so yeah, they put this single out. It didn't do anything. They languished in the studio for a few more months until eventually Shelter Records said, all right, Tom, you know, the record deal is just you. We don't want the rest of the band. And he said, all right, well, I need Mike Campbell. And then he let the other guys go. They did a couple songs with session musicians, and they didn't really like the direction that was going in. Like they said, they even like really respected the musicians they were playing with, but they just didn't really get that magic until Bedmont Tench, the keyboard player, he kind of accidentally put the band together because he got Mike Campbell and Stan Lynch himself together to record one of his songs, and Tom Petty was invited over to, I think, do some backing vocals, and he went, well, I'm taking this band and making it my band, and the rest is history. So
Yeah.
We'll be taking a look at the 2008 Mudcrutch album next season, and I think it's interesting because it was 30 years later. Those guys hadn't played together for so long. At least Tom Ledden, the guitar player, and the drummer, they kind of did local music things, but they never reached the success of the Heartbreakers. But then you got the three Heartbreakers. You got Tom, Mike, and Benmont. So it really resulted in a cool kind of unique record, I think, just because you rarely hear about that, bands that just get back together like 30 years later. A band that you brought in, Dave, they did that. The Vapors. They did an album 2020, I think.
Yeah.
We should do that one.
We should at some point, yeah.
I actually just listened to the episode Thursday.
Oh, the Vapors one?
The one that we did Thursday. I was like, I haven't. I was like, oh, I don't remember saying stuff like this. It's funny re-listening to our episodes and like, oh man, I am such an asshole.
It was interesting re-listening to the Ace Frehley episode after I reran it.
Ooh, I'm a big asshole on that one.
And of course, I put it out the day before he fucking dies. Like,
and I'm like, we killed Ace Frehley.
First we killed Paul Di'Anno, now we killed Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
I said that in a text to our group. I said we killed Ace Frehley.
That was the last thing he heard. He heard Sean freaking out about the album, and then he got brain bleed.
He was going downstairs to be like, who are these fucks? I'm gonna sue the fuck out of them.
Nah, not Ace. Gene would. Yeah.
Hey, Gene Simmons.
Sue me.
Sue me. Fuck you, Simmons. Gene Simmons. Go fuck yourself, Gene Seaman.
Actually, one of the better stories from Mike's book is they opened for Kiss, and I forget which city it was in, but it was like more of like a secondary market, I guess. And so Mike goes up to Gene Simmons, and he's just like, oh, hey, what brings you to Cleveland or whatever? And Gene just turns to him and goes, all right, kid, listen to this just like once. And then he just like goes off about like, on these dates you want to play these cities, like the big money-making cities, but on these days you want to play the secondary cities. And Mike's like reaction to that was like, thanks, I was just saying hi. Just making conversation. But I guess Gene Simmons, he after the Heartbreakers opened for him, he like talked him up to like all sorts of people in the press. So
nice.
you can kind of thank Gene Simmons for Tom Petty's at least initial start. So I guess he's 1 point less of an asshole because of that.
Yeah.
And then we can give him more points for other things.
It's like The Good Place. Like, yeah, you're going to hell anyway, but I mean...
Yeah. Well, in The Good Place, everyone... Oh, that's a spoiler, but yeah.
Going to hell, going to hell,
Yeah.
going to hell.
The standards got too high, so everyone's just in hell.
All right.
It's a good show.
Hey everyone, Future Steve here. So I just realized that we completely forgot to talk about the MUDCRUTCH version of Don't Do Me Like That after we said we were going to listen to it, and we did all listen to it, and we all liked it, and basically the gist of it was it sounds very similar to the eventual version that came out on Damn the Torpedoes, but it's a lot rawer, and it was missing some elements that made the song a bit more hooky, a bit more easy to enjoy, easier to digest, and that kind of stuff. If I remember, I will make everybody talk about it when we do the full album next season. Thanks.
That was MUDCRUTCH.
That was MUDCRUTCH, and this was side 1, side B. Catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Floof Goof Studios production. Please check out the description for more information about the guests and the album reviewed. You can find us on Bluesky under the names Kill Rock Music, that's KILRAVOCK, and Dave under Beastmaster General. You can find us on Instagram under Kill Rock Music SWS and Dave_Diction. And you can also find our regular contributor Sean under the name Boozer Slug. You can find Steve and Sean on Threads with the same usernames as Instagram. Check out our post-punk band The Alliterates, our experimental group Lucid Fugue, and Steve's solo project Kill Rock on most major streaming platforms. You can visit Steve's website, killrockmusic.com, for easy access. That's KILRAVOCK music.com. And if you want to check out Dave's past band Gong Farmer and their album Pop Dada, you can do so on Bandcamp. Thanks.
Ejaculate and leave.
Fugazi! Hey, I'm Fugazi here.
Hey!
Y'all ready for this?
Dun 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 dun.